And I, of course, forgot to hit the record button for that first little part, but big deal. We didn't miss anything. We're here to try and accomplish a little bit by having a discussion about why all this hysteria is so crazy and why we need to shy away from it, and not necessarily shy away from it, but we need to offer information about why. And in fact, why this hysteria is so insane. I just got done watching that. Well, I didn't actually finish it, but it's something that Sam did. Sam and Amanda Janis, they did a couple days ago. And I didn't get to finish all the way through it because I had to go run some errands before I could be ready for this show this morning. But one of the things he showed that I've got here that I want to show to people, I screenshot it and brought it up so I could give people a real idea of just how incredibly ridiculous this all is. And there's so much in that episode that once this is all over with, I'll probably take that episode and get it posted into the comments of this so that people can go watch the whole thing if they want to. But the number of deaths, like he pulled up a graph about the number of deaths from all kinds of different things. And, you know, you guys, in order for you guys to actually see this, when I bring it up, when I bring up these articles, you'll probably want to be logged in over on the Kong family page side so that you can see them. Because they're not going to be inside this Zoom room where we are here. They're just going to be going, because I'm going to take them and cover them over the top of our Zoom, you know, the three of us here talking. But before we get started, so how's it going today, Ian? How you doing, buddy, over there in Arkansas?
I'm doing great, man. I went and did my grocery shopping the other day, and luckily I went to border town, so I didn't have to fight too many crowds, but my goodness, shelves were picked bare.
Well, you're sure looking great. I can tell you that much. So how about
That's
you,
because
Wetzel?
my produce section was unspoiled, dude. I got 2 big bags of kale. We made a massage kale salad last night. We're making sure that we eat sardines and small fish to get lots of omegas and keep our immune system up. Avocado a day.
Can't beat that with a stick. How about you, Wets? How you doing, buddy?
I just got every bit of beef jerky and peanuts I could. You know, I got all the candy bars. I got all the candy bars, and I thought, you know, look, at the end of the day, toilet paper, and again, the man, when you've got 6 rolls, and I don't give a crap twice, no pun intended, actually it was, that it has mega written on the roll, but I'm telling you, $9.98 for 6 mega rolls of toilet paper. You've got to be shitting me.
Yeah, you know.
So, you know, at the very end of the day, man, I'll use my shirt, and I've got a washing machine. You know, I'll rip off sleeves like I'm out in the gold mine digging.
Yeah, you know, it's truly amazing what's going on out there, and you know, I'm looking because Ian brought up the Pavlov's dogs, the Pavlovian dialect thing, and I hope to get into that discussion a little bit here, because I think all of this is going to, you know, what we're trying to do here is help people understand that they don't need to be panicking like they're doing. This is not some big pandemic like they're calling it. It's simply not a pandemic, and them just by using that word and continuing to hit that word and that word over and over and over again in the media, pandemic, pandemic, pandemic. And then the other word that they're using is cases. You know, there's been over 125,000 cases in the world so far, but there's only been 4,600 deaths. And 90% of those deaths have been people who are already old and compromised and that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, for people who are taking care of themselves, they really have practically nothing to fear from this. And, you know, it's, you know, we all have to just realize that if we don't take care of ourselves, we're, you know, like Sam always says, none of us are getting out of here alive. you know, and so, well, yeah, it's amazing what's going on. So I hope to just have some educational discussion and, you know, bring up some points that people should take a look at and consider when they're considering the idea of how scared they're going to be over all this.
Hey, can I share something with you boys? So we have the state tournament. There's 4 classifications here in Montana, and all 4 were going. I went to the state B one, which was in Butte. So it's a couple hours away. I went Thursday. I brought my 2.5 spray bottle, and I was spraying that thing up into the air, and I had all those old guys. See, the Butte Civic Center is beautiful because they've got all their old people. That place, that building is like a iconic landscape in Montana. The Butte Civic Center is one of the oldest civic centers built in the state, if not the first. So there isn't one geriatric all-star under 80 there. You want to talk about old people being scared? Well, these Butte people are tougher and shit. They're sitting there with their masks and they're 80, 85s giving you the stamp, taking your ticket. And I come in guns a-blazing like the Waco kid, you know what I mean? And he's like, so, hey, steady as the rock. And I was like, but I shoot with this hand. And I brought that hand up like, no, I'm just kidding. But it's crazy. I'd spray it up in the air. And if people got a little extra mist, they were kind of looking weird, like, what's going on? And I'm like, hey, this is just a virus killer. I said, read the bottle. And I had to read the bottom, 99.999 effective at killing bacteria and virus. Spray away, spray away. Once they all knew what the hell was going on, they were like, spray away. So I'm literally at one corner of this section spraying it up in the air, and I've got grandmas and moms and dads and kids. There's 15, 20 of them just trying to let the mist come down on them. I'm like, well, if we're all going to be yapping at each other and breathing each other, it used to be bad breath that we worried about. Now we're trying not to infect each other if we're an unknown host. So I says, I'm alkalized, I'm healthy, my body is in pretty decent shape for the lifestyle I live, but I says, in order to keep you guys at bay, I'm just making sure I'm knocking this virus down, knocking it down. So yeah, then last night, it got so bad, they finally had 4 cases figured out last night in Montana, or yesterday, so they shut it all down. All the semifinal winners are co-state champions. It's a real bummer, man, because you had some real title tilts that were coming into play tonight. They'll never come into fruition. So I think it's the first time in the history of Montana sports that they've had anything, maybe since around World War I time, World War II maybe. But that's the last time any of this has gone down. So pretty interesting to say the least.
My little angel here, little Jazzy, she wants to be part of the show, but I can't have her walking on my computer screen. She keeps wanting to get up on the desk. I'm like, bear with me for a second. Sorry, guys.
And then he is. Look,
computer screen.
His ain't the only cat. His ain't the only cat.
Yeah, I love those kitties. But
hey, look what else I got. Look who else I got.
Gotta love the puppies too.
Check
I got
this
a
out.
10-month-old dog.
You might as well bring your pet in there, Ian.
I do got an appointment with a gal today, though. She wants to know how much these machines are. So I told her they range, and we should talk. I'll come see you tomorrow. So I'm going to go see her this early afternoon. I actually got to reach out to her. But, yeah, hopefully Enagic. One of my thoughts are Enagic's going to run out of machines.
Yeah, well, that does concern me, you know, that they're already selling somewhere around about 30,000 machines a month. I'm not sure if they can handle too much more, but hey, I'll be glad to give them a trial at it. You know, try and sell as many of them as possible. But you know, like Sam said today or the other day on that show, he said he considers his Kangen water machine a life insurance policy, and I tend to believe the exact same way.
I call it a life assurance policy. I'm assured of health.
Yeah, no doubt, a life assurance policy. I love that. So
Yeah.
just so you know, you guys, my hearing aids both went out on me, and I had to take them
What?
in to have them. My hearing
What?
aids. My nickname's Helen, as most of you
Hi.
know, and I
Hi.
can't hear anything. But
Hi.
you know, so I'm gonna, if you guys could all make sure you speak up as much as possible so I can hear what's being said. I tried hooking in my little headphones so I could hear better, but it takes away the sound from the live show. So I'll just have to bear with it. But you know, the first thing I want to bring up here is something a little bit off of the topic that I was originally scheduling this to be about, and that's this little thing. And you guys are going to need to be logged in on the live site in order to see this. Good morning, Callie. How you doing?
Hey.
So I'm gonna, if you guys want to be able to see these graphics and see these articles, you'll want to be logged in over on the Kong family page so that you can see them. Because I'm not sure. I guess I'm gonna try sharing my page and then you guys could see them through Zoom. So maybe I could do that. Let me see how that works out. I'll try sharing and share my desktop too, and share that. And yes, okay, so here's the different things I wanted to show you guys. This is the first thing I wanted to show you guys because this was from Sam's little thing that he did. This is,
oh, you got it.
Wow. This was back in 2017. And right here, heart disease. It killed 17.79 million people in 2017. 17.79 million people. Where's the hysteria over this? This is what Sam asked. He's like, there's 17.79 million souls that were taken in 2017. My guess is that in 2019, it's even more than that. Where's the hysteria over that?
I think this is a warfare going on. They've had it planned out. You know, from this point, it seems like.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Look, it's a man-made virus. It's a patented virus.
Right.
And my question is, if this is COVID-19, well, what in the hell were the other 1 through 18s about? You know, where were the other COVIDs that we haven't learned about?
Right.
So this was intentionally released. There's no way around that. And I'm not even trying to be a conspiracy guy, but just the way they keep milking it, the way they keep selling Chicken Little stories that the sky is falling. There's no way in the world that this isn't introduced on purpose.
There's lots of strains of coronavirus, but the thing that we have to remember is that this lion may be roaring right now, but it really has no teeth. It targets the very old, the very young, and those with compromised immune systems.
The ones that are old that are very weak or that have a weak immune system.
Weak immune system, dehydrated, they don't have enough energy in their cells. The virus goes in and it attaches to messenger RNA and it replicates new strains of DNA. So it kind of takes over the body and they end up with like a dry viral pneumonia, which just makes them go septic basically and knocks them out. But 99% of the population, it's similar to a flu. You've just got a higher transmission rate, which is kind of freaking people out. Because where maybe 50 people will get the flu, 349 will be infected with this. So people are a little scared.
Is it also projected by the media that they're being part of it with the government to dish out all that information all the time and kind of?
Of course, we've been talking. JJ and I have been talking this morning about Pavlovian fear conditioning. It scrambles the hippocampus. Why is everybody going out and buying up all the toilet paper? Because they saw in the media that it's a basic necessity, that they need it, and the fear is making them behave irrationally because the part of their brain that is responsible for rational thinking is not operating at its maximum potential.
We got into that flight response.
There you go.
Well, one of the things that I'm just trying to encourage our family to do, like everybody knows, I consider everybody that has a Kangen water machine to be part of my family, part of this big giant family of people that are so amazing and so incredible. And I really believe that it's my duty, and I believe it's our duty, because we have a solution. We know the solution. We have it available. And not only do we need to let people know what the solution is, but we have to do everything we can to educate them about how much this hysteria is unfounded. And when I share the thing I wanted to point out on this little graph was that you've got this all these different things that are killing people. You've got cancer killed 9.56 million, respiratory diseases 3.91 million, lower respiratory infections 2.56, dementia 2.5 million, 2.38 for digestive diseases. Wow, it just goes on and on and on. It's in the millions and millions, and then it gets down into the hundreds of thousands. All the way down to terrorism, killing 26,445, and natural disasters killing 9,603. And then right here you see coronavirus. As of 3/11/2020, there have been 4,607 deaths. There's been over 125,000 cases, but of those 125,000 documented cases, there's only been 4,607 deaths. Now that's 4,607 souls that have passed. And that's a tragedy, because those are 4,607 people that had loved ones and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to say that doesn't mean anything. What the reason Sam put this out and the reason I'm bringing it up here is because look at all these other numbers. There's all these other numbers that are just so much higher, but we're not going nuts and bankrupting our economy and putting businesses out of whack and everything else that's going on over literally, this is what we're putting the world on hold for right here. And so
nobody's trying to be insensitive to the loss of a loved one, but 2 months ago it was the measles. Before Laura and I went to New York City, they were fining people $1,000 per day per member of household who was unvaccinated in New York City, and they set up mandatory inoculation centers. So I think we do have to be wise and recognize that there is an agenda here.
Yeah.
And it goes back to Bill Gates said to a WHO council, and I think it was 2008 or 9, that with the proper implementation of vaccines in this world, we're going to effectively reduce the world's population by 10 to 15%. He said that flat out. And as soon as I heard reduce, I had to do a double take, like, what? So, yeah, I think it's all part of that. And we just got to be vigilant. We got to be diligent. We've got to be prepared. And again, I think at the end of the day, compassion and understanding and grace will serve us better than anything. We've gotten a little, I've gotten a little heavy with some of my prospects, about you need to wake up, and I've challenged people pretty hard. And I don't think challenging people as hard as I have, and again, they have heart disease or they have one of these issues. So I'm trying to say, look, you need this more than anybody. But now I just think compassion and grace and kindness and understanding and just the ability to share what we have is paramount, because everyone else is losing their minds.
Well, and it's sad they even. Go ahead.
I would like to share some thoughts and ideas that I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Neville Goddard. Have you an author, Neville Goddard? He has a book out. I highly recommend it. It's a small book, I mean, small in the amount of text, but it's called Feeling is the Secret. It's basically taking and utilizing your higher faculties of your imagination and bringing it into form, which we want to create. So, and then there's also the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which you can be sure you get the right version from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. But the idea is where we operate more with our higher faculties and the awareness that we have. We still have our doing what we're doing, but yet if we can bring into that and bring into the place, I'm so happy and grateful now that you start that out and you bring in the feelings behind it. And you like, I'm so happy and grateful now that, and you define, you clarify what you're wanting to bring in, the conversation, and then why, the reasoning for it, like you're for making a difference for other people, you're enjoying it, so it's kind of so you bringing that together, and with the gratitude statement, it reinforces it. You do it twice a day, morning and night. Try that and see how that might go. The other thing that I was thinking about is that perhaps it would be helpful for us to, consider, going on to LinkedIn, because people are there for business. We can do a search on there. You can get like 25 connections each day without getting blocked. You can try to connect people. You can do a search engine of people that are likely, going to be in the business that are going to need this water, something like that. So that's just an idea. I just thought I'd share those thoughts.
Yeah, well, having to, getting positive thoughts going in your mind, and positive thoughts are going to be a heck of a lot better than fearful thoughts, and so it's definitely a great idea to try and focus on that kind of stuff. And I know that video that Sam did, that meeting they had, there was a lot of discussion about the fear factor, and if you're fearful of things you don't know are going to happen, and instead of, like, I loved what Amanda said. She said, I'm not going to let fear, if this affect me one bit, for the fear side of things. I'm not going to be scared of it. I'm still going to go to the gym. I'm still going to go out and eat. I'm still going to go to local businesses. I'm still going to go. I am not going to change my life one iota over this. I'm going to continue to build my immune system. I'm going to continue to take my 2.5 water with me where I go. I'm going to continue to wash my hands. I'm going to continue to do everything I can to keep myself safe. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to let this whole hysterical fear factors thing even affect me one little bit. And that's the way I feel about it too. I'm not going to let this affect my life. It's already affecting my life in ways that I don't have any control over. And that's what she said as well. There's a lot of things that are going on that we simply don't have any control over. The only thing we can control is what we're doing ourselves, and then try to do the best we can to inform others as to what they can do to be able to, help themselves and help others and help share the word and the message. And one of the things that I think is important about this, and it's kind of what spawned this meeting today, was just the simple fact that I'm one of these people that I always like to get to the root of problems. I don't like hacking away at branches or pulling off leaves. I want to rip that freaking tree out by its roots. If I don't want the tree there, I need to rip it out by its roots, because I know for a fact that if you just cut a tree off and you don't get its roots out, that thing's going to keep growing. And I know for a fact, because I got several apricot trees outside the backyard that had sweet kernels, and we cut them down, but we didn't rip them out. And sure enough, those babies are sprouting again, and they're going to grow more trees. And the thing is we got to get to the root of the problem here. And in my not so humble opinion, in this particular case, the root of the problem is government. And it's the root of the problem is people's belief in government. And government just so happens, whether you're a fan of government, whether you're not a fan of government, it doesn't change the fact as to what government is. Government is simply the most evil entity that has ever been devised by mankind. That's why our founding fathers, they tried to do everything they could to limit the power and the scope and the emphasis and the and the ability for it to be able to incorporate itself into our lives, they did everything they could to try and limit the power and scope of government. And what we have done over the last 200 years is we've allowed government to just literally take over everything, to the point of the fact where they are literally going out there and doing what we know they've already done, like we're talking about with this virus that's got 19 different strains now. Where'd the other 18 strains come from? You know, we know for a fact that this was created in a government laboratory over in Wuhan, China, this latest episode of it. And, you know, so always behind the scenes, and this is just something that I can't help, you guys, because I've been studying this stuff for 27 years. And I can't help but look at the root of the problem. And every time I look at anything that's going on out here in the world today, when I take a look behind the scenes, pull back the curtain to see who's behind the curtain, guess who's always behind the curtain? Yeah, you got it. And so part of my thing today is I wanted to bring up something that I think is interesting, because I'm going to go back to screen sharing real quick, because I just want to go through these two articles that I wanted to discuss about. Yeah, I agree, Callie. You know, we need to get to the root of the problem, and ultimately this is the root of the problem. And quite frankly, as long as people continue to say things like what are in this article, one of these articles here, is that, you know, the solution is government. You know, there was another one that I read talking about how this is going to bankrupt more people than it's going to kill. And all through that article was a constant barrage of government this, government that, government needs to do this, government needs to do that, government. It's always the solution for so many people. And it's only the solution for people who aren't looking behind the scenes to see where the problem really lies, where the root of the problem really is. And so, you know, one of my big goals in this life is to try and help eliminate and slow down at least this horrific belief in government, that it's the solution to anything. So real quick here, I'm going to run through this stuff, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys on what you think and or whatever. And I'm going to start with this article from the talking about the flu of the 1918 influenza pandemic, because in 1918 influenza killed literally millions of people, and what they found is that they were able to their best solution against this thing that killed so many people, this influenza, that is they found out that a combination of fresh air and sunlight seems to have prevented deaths among patients and infections among medical staff. He says there's scientific support for this. Research shows that outdoor air is a natural disinfectant. Fresh air can kill the flu virus and other harmful germs. Equally, sunlight is germicidal, and there is now evidence that it can kill the flu virus. And this was called the open air treatment in 1918. It says during the Great Pandemic, two of the worst places to be were military barracks and troop ships. Overcrowding and bad ventilations put soldiers and sailors at high risk of catching influenza and other infections that often followed it. And as with the current COVID-19 outbreak, most of the victims of the so-called Spanish flu did not die from influenza. They died of pneumonia and other complications. And, you know, it goes down in here to talk about, I recommend everybody read this, and I'll make sure to put the links to these these articles so people can go read them after this is all over with. But one of the things they found is that right down here, it says the efficacy of open air treatment has been absolutely proven, and one has only to try it to discover its value. And to me, it's pretty understandable why open air is a disinfectant, because when you take your ORP meter and you put that ORP meter out in the air and you turn it on and you look at its air is acid. And these viruses and stuff, they don't do well when they're put into an acidic situation. So it makes great sense to me why air would be a disinfectant. But
We
what
can
they ended
unpack
up
some of
doing,
that if you want to later, JJ.
what's that?
We can unpack some of that later if you want to.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, once we're done with this article, I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a preview of it and the things that stuck out to me. And then I'd love to hear what you have to say about it and anything you'd like to add to it.
Yeah.
The open air. And so basically what they ended up doing, and what the summary of this is that they used to use this open air therapy, and they started building hospitals with big open windows where they could open it up and they could cross ventilate and get lots of fresh air going through the hospitals. And they found that it was just absolutely tremendously helping people get better. And what they ended up doing, of course, is they ended up changing from using this open air therapy to what they use now, which is antibiotics. And now we have all these diseases and such that are resistant to the antibiotics. So they got to keep coming out with more antibiotics. And, when I shared this out the other day, I said, open air and sunlight, that doesn't make the pharmaceutical companies any money. That's free. Open air and sunlight is free. and antibiotics cost money and make money for these people. And so that's what they've done. If you continue to read through this article, you'll find that that's what they did, is they got rid of the open air therapy and replaced it with antibiotics. And now if you go into a modern day hospital, they've got, most rooms in a hospital have windows that won't even open. You can't even get any fresh air in the hospital. And so we have these issues running rampant. And so, that's basically what I wanted to point out about this particular article, is just how that part of it really hit me hard, because they back in 1918 with this influenza that killed millions of people, the way they overcame it was with natural remedies. And that is what we are all about. We are about nature. We're about using natural stuff instead of stuff created in a laboratory to be able to fight these things off. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to bring to a point there for everybody. And yeah, I'd be really curious to hear what you guys have to say about it, what you have to add to that discussion.
I'm telling you, JJ, when I recall fighting for my life, knowing that whatever the antibiotics were going on in my gut, and it was just making everything worse, whatever they were trying to give me to help, and something just came across me and said, no, that's not how your body needs to heal. So what I did was I researched. I looked up a natural way of healing, and that's how I found doctors that know just what it is our bodies need to maintain and bring your body's homeostasis to a balance and your pH balanced out. When it comes to your body, it knows what's natural and what's not. How are we going to bring our bodies to a potential hydrogen of 7.45 if we adding this and this and that to it to see if that's going to work? It don't always work. So natural remedy is what my life back. And drinking this healthy hydrogen-rich water. I'm telling you, God knows. He led me to these people for a reason, and to you guys. Definitely.
Yes. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing, if we look at this and we really start to unpack what's going on, I mentioned Pavlovian fear conditioning earlier. So Pavlov's dogs, if anybody's familiar with that experiment, he had a bunch of dogs that he was training, and he would introduce pleasant or noxious stimuli, and he would study the dogs for their reaction. So he basically shocked the dogs to elicit a specific behavior. And when we look at neuroplasticity and studying behavioral conditioning of populations, if you look at the majority of a population that goes with a herd, they go with society, what happens is there's a stimulus, right? And so you have, before it was H1N1, or it was the measles, MMR, and everybody's all up in arms fighting over whether people should get vaccines or do this or do that. And there were a bunch of people that were arguing that this should be mandatory, that people who were unvaccinated are creating an issue for the rest of everybody. Well, if you have the vaccine and your vaccine's working, then what's the big deal? Why do you have to point the finger at my family if I choose to do something a little bit differently? If we get sick with something, we self-quarantine anyway until we're asymptomatic and not contagious, because we're courteous people. We understand how this stuff works. What people don't understand is they go out and they get a live virus vaccine, and for 14 days, they're shedding live virus to those people around them who may not have a very strong immune system. Now, you couple that with the news media coming out and, oh my gosh, it's this novel coronavirus. What people should be worried about is the fact that there were doctors in China that were communicating on a supposedly private messaging app. And I'm not going to name the organization that controls the information that goes back and forth on the app, but the app that they were using, if you read the terms and conditions, it's supposed to be secure and encrypted. And these guys were doctors and medical students that were working in the province, that were talking back and forth about this new strain of sickness that they were seeing that was spreading faster than anything else. They didn't know what it was. People were getting stressed because they couldn't identify it. There's your fear. Now you've got WHO professionals, CDC professionals, people in healthcare who understand what this is. They understand that it's an upper respiratory virus. They understand that the elderly and the immunocompromised are at a higher level of risk. People can get this and their bodies can fight it off. But when you put people into a state of panic, I've talked a lot about how the nervous system operates. You have the autonomic nervous system, which is divided into 3 categories. Really, I focus on 2 with people, and that's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight, or your rest and digest. Your body responds to stress the same way that it responds to injury. So if you're constantly worried about running away from the tiger, you're going to take energy away from your nervous system that is feeding your digestive system, your immune system. You're going to take blood away from your digestive tract. It's going to shunt, and it's going to go to what you need to protect you from a threat. So your body goes into a state of stress, and it starts to become fatigued because it doesn't fully recharge. So the first thing that people need to understand, use common sense. You know, standard precautions, basic hand washing protocols. Don't be afraid, don't be rude to people, but if you see somebody who's sick around you, let's go ahead and ask them to be courteous and keep their distance. If you're sick, don't go into the bank and hang out talking to people, touching the newspaper and everything else. People are panicking and going to the grocery store. They're going into crowds of people who may be asymptomatic, and they don't recognize the fact that there's a 6-foot radius around individuals that is a droplet precaution for transmission of a disease. Now, you're probably not going to get mortally ill if you contract this, but your travel is going to be restricted. You're going to be quarantined to your home. This is going to affect people financially. So there's a caveat. I'm not trying to downplay the situation, but we just have to understand that the body responds to stress in a certain way, that if you have something that incites fear, your immune system is going to be weakened. So think rationally. Now, as to what JJ was saying earlier, vitamin D insufficiency affects about 50% of the population. I'm reading off of PubMed right now because I thought this was a really great article that I pulled earlier. There's an estimated 1 billion people worldwide across all ethnicities and age groups that have vitamin D deficiency. This pandemic of hypovitaminosis D can mainly be attributed to lifestyle. For example, reduced outdoor activities and environmental factors, including air pollution. factors that reduce exposure to sunlight, which is required for ultraviolet B, UVB, induced vitamin D production in the skin. High prevalence of vitamin D insufficiency is particularly important to the public health issue because hypovitaminosis is an independent risk factor for total mortality in the general population. Current studies suggest that we may need more vitamin D than presently recommended to prevent chronic disease. And it goes in to talk about autoimmunity and immune deficiency and everything else. The body is basically a battery, and we have to keep ourselves charged up, which is why it's so important. JJ and I always focus on the ORP factors of the water. pH is a great indicator. The pH in our water is electrochemical. So really what you're doing, you're paying attention to the pH because you're paying attention to the electron count. That's how this thing works. Yes, it's going to alkalize a little bit. You're not really going to get a difference in the blood, but what you are going to get is a massive amount of electrons that can help your body to function at peak performance. So you couple that with a healthy diet, you make sure that you're getting all of your right nutrients, and then you get plenty of sunlight. Go outside and walk barefoot. Deep breathing will activate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system. If you do diaphragmatic breathing through the nose, that'll pull your body out of a state of fight or flight and put you into a state of rest. So hand washing, lots of sleep, eat good food, stay hydrated.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, Ian, because that's, you know, like Sam said today, that I thought was really, well, I just watched it today, but what he said in that meeting is, he said, not only is the body an electrical, you know, an electrical unit that has to have electrons, so are viruses, so are bacteria, so are all these bad things. They need negative electrons too in order to survive. Just like we need these negatively charged electrons to keep our battery charged, so does a virus, so does a bacteria, whatever, so does a spore and a mold spore, that kind of thing. These things all need this negatively charged electricity to survive as well. And that's why the 2.5 water that we have in so much abundance from our machines is the reason why it's so effective against these viruses, is because it goes in there and it steals their electrons, and that kills them. And it's fascinating, really, because all this positively charged stuff that we're eating and drinking is stealing electrons from our body, from our battery, and discharging our battery. And that's why what we have is so important, because it gives us such a massive amount of electrical charge that's negatively charged, that charges our battery back up and gives everything we need, because like our white blood cells and all that kind of stuff, that needs, in order for them to work, for them to go and kill and do what they're supposed to do, they need that charge too. And so it's such a fascinating conundrum. It's such an interesting thing to learn about, and how the body works. And, you know, that's probably why most people that are involved with Kangen water, they're not concerned about this, because they know they're keeping their battery charged, and they're giving their body what it needs so that it can create the electron stealer to steal from all these bad things. And so it's so fascinating.
Well, if you have a higher pH, a higher potential hydrogen count, you're going to be more resilient, right? You're supposed to be slightly alkaline.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Go ahead, share whatever you got.
I have a question. This is just it's kind of been contemplating on it lately. I've actually been I won't say too much being on air on recording, but I've been experimenting with more of the 11.5, you know, consuming that, and I noticed that between that and just the 9.5 water, our standard drinking water, that that it seems to keep clearing out the continual environmental toxins.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that might be why, you know, like if you're in an environment where the heater's going and the place is, you know, filled with from the indoor environment, if that can contribute to feeling like you need to be drinking more water. Just drink more, even though you're being consistent with it. Sometimes just kind of keeping it going consistently on often. Does that make sense?
What do you think about that, Ian?
Well, electricity dries you out, makes you dehydrated. But one of the biggest
Oh,
things that I would say is that there have actually been studies done on different populations, and we'll take two groups basically, a test group and a control group. And you've got one group that is exposed to the elements. Their bodies are able to adapt through all of the seasons. They're going outside when it's cold. They're going outside when it's warm. They're getting the elements. They're getting sunlight. Both groups are eating a similar diet and drinking a similar amount of water. The group that remains in a climate controlled environment, getting artificial light, not exposed to the elements, they're bundled up because they're susceptible to cold, they're susceptible to heat, so they're using air conditioning. Those things all play a role in the immune system and how the body functions. And in neuroscience, we call that the principle of specificity. It's specific adaptation to imposed demand. So I think as we have adapted as a culture to things like technology, you know, whenever I was a kid, we didn't have tablets and smartphones. And so we went outside and we played in the dirt and we rode our bikes, and our curfew was when the streetlights came on. Now the culture has changed to the point that kids are able to stay inside and play on electronics. They're not getting their natural sunlight. They're not getting their exercise. And the standard American diet is nutritionally void. There's a lot of factors that come into play there. But, you know, we've been told for years and years that I like to revert back to Wade Lighthart's theory, the awesome philosophy, right? Air, water, exercise, sunlight. So it's just, it comes back to the basics.
I hadn't even thought of that, of the, you know, electricity dries you out, you know, but I guess it does take the energy. It does, hadn't thought of it that way, but that makes sense to me now. Why I would be feeling like, oh, it's got to keep up with my water, you know.
Mm-hmm. We can always tell out of all of our athletes that we work with, we can tell who's properly hydrated, because the people that aren't, when they're dehydrated, there's more resistance in the current from our machines. And so it feels more unpleasant. It's got more of a bite to it. If they're properly hydrated, they're giving their body the fuel that it needs to actually function, then the tissue behaves in a more healthy fashion and the electricity is able to pass through unimpeded.
So with everything you're saying and talking about, it gives it's confirmation how important it is to make sure we get outside every day
and stay properly hydrated.
and stay hydrated. Yeah, definitely.
Michelle Rayleigh posted a post that I reposted today because I thought it was really good, talking about the cilia in your nose and how they fight off pathogens as you're breathing through your nose. And so one of the things that I do every day, because I encounter special populations, I encounter a lot of people, and I mean, I use my 2.5. We have a lot of folks who are compromised, and so we don't want to further challenge them by using a lot of chemicals in our facility. So we use 2.5, and one of the things I do is I constantly spray my hands down with I've got a bottle that has 2.5 mixed with tea tree oil. Patchouli oil is another one that you can use. But then I've got 2.5 that I'll snort a little bit up my nose, make sure that you're blowing your nose consistently, and then put beauty water back in to moisten the nasal passages. because if you dry out and that gets crusty, it's not working properly. So if you're sniffly and you're having issues, then that's why your immune system starts to kind of weaken. We got to maintain our body's defenses.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that idea of utilizing this water up the nose, and it's just so interesting, all the different things that we continue to learn. And I really appreciate all you do, Ian, to help educate people about just all the different aspects of our body and how important this particular subject is. And you put out a post the other day that I just absolutely loved it, because one of the things you said in that post was something to the effect of, here's the latest one. And once this one passes, what's the next one going to be? And what's the next one after that going to be? And the next one after that. And, this is just the latest in a long line of these kinds of things. I was just seeing another thing that was from last year, and it was something called norovirus. Mm-hmm. And the schools were all freaked out about that here in Salt Lake. And then there was something else the year before that, and something else the year before that. And every year it's something new. And you were like, I've got this. I can protect me against all these things, no matter what it is, And I just love that concept. And, what do you have to expand on about that? And as far as, we don't know what the next thing's going to do or be. What do we do?
Well, and again, I never want to allude to making any medical claims, so that's not what I'm trying to do here. What I am trying to do is show people how they can be more effective in their infection control protocols and proper hygiene, and they can give their body the tools that it needs to be able to boost its own internal processes. Because that's what you're doing. You're staying properly hydrated, and you're giving your body fuel that it needs to run its own programs. So it doesn't really matter what the next thing is. We haven't found anything yet that can survive in a pH of 2.5. That's what that was actually the FDA qualification for sterilization. Whenever they were looking at that under the food law and everything, they tested different pH versions of hypochlorous acid, and your 5 and 6 pH don't do what your 3.5 will do, but your 3.5 won't do what some of these other sterilants will do. But once you hit 2.5, it's like 30 seconds up to 2 minutes, no live organisms detected across the board.
Right.
So between that, proper hydration, and then, we say change your water, change your life. In a way, that's because the water will change your life. But when people start looking at this from a holistic health perspective, they start wanting to know more about how they can lead healthier lives. It's a shame to me whenever I have conversations with people in the scientific community, and people are talking like, oh, well, we've got such a big problem. It's a shame that it's come to the point that we would have to cull the human population because the earth is overpopulated and it's unsustainable. Well, no, how about we focus on human life as valuable and stop trying to focus on getting rid of what's already here, and recognize that there are things that we can do in our everyday life. Yes, it may not be the most convenient, but we can minimize our carbon footprint. And by minimizing our footprint, we're not putting all of these toxins into the environment. We're not putting plastic into the ocean. We're minimizing the acidic waste that we're producing on the environment. Because what we just described earlier with vitamin D synthesis, that's similar to how a plant cell operates with photosynthesis, guys. The earth is a giant battery. We are a giant battery. And I think a lot of the issue comes back to just, if you read Anthony DeMello's book, Awareness, which I'm going through right now, it comes back to selfish self-centered mindset, and we're supposed to die to ourselves. We're supposed to have compassion on others, because it's perfect love that casts out all fear. That's how we unite people. That's how we bring people together. And it's a shame that we've kind of degenerated to the point that people don't understand how to protect themselves. I was astonished when I went to the store and everybody's buying canned and boxed foods that are just chocked full of preservatives. Everybody's taking antibiotics. And again, I'm not trying to give medical advice here, but if your gut has bacteria and there's a connection between your brain and your gut.
Yeah, people don't realize they have to build their flora, right?
You have to build your gut flora to be able to absorb nutrients. We have genetically modified foods that are being put on the shelf, and in order to extend the shelf life, they've had a lot of the digestive enzymes taken out, which is why, again, we're not giving nutrition advice, but we always say buy organic if you can. Look for the Project Non-GMO sticker. Be an informed consumer. If you're pulling something out of a box, that's not food, that's a food-like substance.
Yeah.
Most of the canned beans at the store have EDTA in them to preserve freshness in a BPA lined can, because they have to put a plastic lining inside the can because it's aluminum. Aluminum is a neurotoxin. BPA.
Plastic lining in the can?
BPA.
Oh, BPA is plastic. Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
EDTA will preserve your food. It'll also preserve your gut.
Yeah, it truly is amazing, you guys. I mean, when you start looking closely at this, and that's one thing I got to say. I'm so thankful for getting involved with this company. I thought I had a little bit of knowledge about how the human body works and that kind of thing, but since joining and getting involved with this family of people, I've learned that I didn't really know squat. and I'm so grateful for that, because my goal is to learn every single day. I really say that if you're not learning something new every day, then you might as well just be 6 feet under. And that's the way I live my life. That's the way I believe it should be. I think once you decide that you know everything and you stop learning, then you're not living anymore. And that's just my opinion on it, but
it's true.
I'm trying like crazy to learn every day. And that's part of the reason why I do what I do with this show, is because I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to inform others, and trying to change the world. As we've got to change the world. It's up to us to do it. And we have, as Dr. Filzer said, we have one of the two greatest inventions in the history of mankind that we have the blessing of being part of. And we've got to figure out how to educate people properly so that they can see the value as well. And yeah, exactly, Callie. There is something new to learn every single day if you're looking for it. If you're somebody like my oldest brother who thinks he knows everything there is to know about everything, I mean, he once told me that, I know everything there is to know about everything. I'm like, wow. Normally you say something like that, you're just being facetious. But, it's like he wasn't being facetious. He really truly thinks he knows everything. So I just was like, man, I feel sorry for you, bro. But I'm just grateful to be able to have this platform and to have these people around me, to be surrounded by people like you, Ian, and you, Sean, and Rodgar, and Callie, and Marilyn, and Corolla, and Sam, and Amanda, and Dan Edlund, and, just all the people that are out there that are just such incredible influences on my life. And I'm just so grateful for it. And, I was originally planning on getting into some discussion about the whole governmental side of it, but I think that there's no sense in doing that, and we're already an hour in, so I think we've really hit the important sides at this point for this particular show as to what what we really want to try to get people to understand, is that we don't need to be scared about this. We just need to do what we can do. And we need to encourage other people to do what they can do. And, you know, don't buy into the fear. Don't buy into the hysteria. Quit being a Pavlov's dog and start thinking for yourself. Start looking for information. Start learning what you really can do, and go towards nature in every aspect, and everything that you come across in this life. Go towards love, go towards nature, go towards natural things. Look for everything and anything that you can find that's natural, versus going to the doctor and getting more chemicals and more medicines and more antibiotics and more whatever, you know. And that's pretty much where I want to end it as far as what I have to say today, kids, minus my usual ending. But do you guys, any of you, have anything you would like to add before we get out of here and get on with our day?
I do have one thing. You know, we talk a lot about you'll know them by their fruit. And one thing that I've really noticed in the last couple of days going around to the stores is that when people are squeezed, what's inside of them comes out. And so I would just encourage everybody not to lose your compassion for your fellow human being, because most people don't really want a cure, right? They want something to make their symptoms go away, to make their pain go away. A remedy. But a cure is painful. So if you know that you're going to have to fight through sickness, that's why people rush out and they say, no, I want something to prevent it. But at the expense of what with our behavior, I guess, is what I'm really trying to get at. Because I literally had people running into me with their shopping carts, and they've got toilet paper, and they've got sanitary wipes, and they've got hand sanitizer. And it's like, I'm just getting my groceries. And this woman's bumping into me with her cart because she wants to get past me. And she's not even forward thinking enough in her current state to see that there's a line of people going back to the paper goods aisle. Nobody's going anywhere. And it's just perfect love drives out fear. So just exactly like Callie said, be the change.
No, listen, and if I can, you know, this just brings to me that Ephesians 6, you know, God armored us, you know, with the sword of the Spirit, the shield of the faith, the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, the belt of truth, and the boots of peace. He never armored our butt cheeks.
Exactly.
You know, think about that. Because he didn't intend for us to run from evil or fear. He didn't intend us to turn around and hightail it out of there. You know, so we've got to face this stuff. You know, we've got to face it knowing full well that we can armor up if we just exercise our faith and understand who we are in him. And that'll help us, you know, with compassion, with love. You know, it's interesting, you know. I was shopping last night on my way back from that road trip, and I got in there at like midnight, 24-hour store. This couple was just stressing out. They were arguing with each other, and you could just see their whole spirit. And I was like, hey, you guys, how you doing? And they just looked up at me, and it just kind of took them out of their mode. I was like, what are you kids doing up at this hour out here flirting around in the old grocery store? I kind of like it. You guys you're a good couple. I can tell you guys compliment each other. Next thing you know, we're visiting shit. They didn't want to let me out of there. They just wanted to visit, and it gave them a reprieve at the very least from their just self-induced state of almost not panic, but they were very disheveled. Let's put it that way. You know, and they were arguing about which roll of toilet paper, this one's more expensive, and this is the mega roll and all this. And I just kind of had to jump in there because I was walking right through them, you know. And it was just simple. You know, I was just like, hey, and all I said as I walked up was, just remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. And they looked at me, and the lady said, thank you so much. God bless you. And it just shifted their gears, you know. if I was not in the right frame of mind and I was stressed, I'd have been like, y'all need to shut the hell up. And I'd have reacted with that type, and it's just not any good. So it was just cool to know what God was able to do through me to just soften up their perspectives. And I don't know, it just made me think of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's all what we got to do is just face this head on and be good to each other and be gracious and compassionate to each other. And like you said, self-quarantine. If you figure out that you're feeling symptomatic, be smart, be considerate. I don't know. I think we'll be fine. Yeah, compassion all day, Callie. I dig it.
Yes.
That's all it is. And I think, and even the political climate, just the ugliness and the way in which we've talked to each other, that we're barking around behind computer screens and we're judging and condemning and just hating each other. And it's not really hating each other. It's a reflection of our self-hatred, our self-loathing, our self-frustration. And I just think hopefully this is an opportunity, whatever we get, however we get through this, that we find a reflective period as a society to really evaluate what it's all about. And it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's about doing the right thing. It's about being the right person. It's about being the right vessel of love and compassion and understanding. It's that simple. It's that simple. So yeah, that was my 2 cents. I get a little winded sometimes.
You know, this all comes to the 10 Commandments. We all need to abide by them. You know, I always been saying this for years, that if the government or whoever is in office, if they would just follow by the 10 Commandments, we wouldn't have so much hatred and ugliness and division out here. Those need to be the rules, not what they think is the rules. But I can't be always dissing them. But, you know, if we were really, really out with the heart and do unto others what you wouldn't want done to you, say unto others what you wouldn't want to say unto them, I believe in that. I believe if I don't want it done to me, said to me that way, I won't do it to them. And I'm trying to teach that today. It's really hard when they're all set in their own ways, but we got to come back to the Bible and bring God back into our country and our world.
Amen. Amen. You know, you guys, I really love the way the ending of this show worked out, because it really is all about compassion. And this company has showed me more compassion and helped me learn more about compassion between the company itself and the people that are involved with it, that I just can't say enough how grateful I am. And this will be my mission for the rest of my living days on this planet, will be to help share the love of this company and what it has to share and what it has to offer, and just how awesome the people are that are part of it. And I'm really looking forward to September, when we get to meet and give real hugs and all that kind of stuff. And in the meantime, I just want to keep sharing as much knowledge and as much information as possible, and getting as much of the word out there as possible, so that people can understand and they can help stop the nonsense, because all this stuff is so incredibly preventable. And our bodies have so much capability, and you know, our minds and our hearts have so much capability as well. And you know, it's really cool to be part of something like this, and to see something like this happening and know that you've got a solution, that you've got something that can really and truly help people. And I've been looking for something like this my whole life, and I'm just so happy that I finally found it. And I'm pretty sure that all you probably feel about the same way in that regard. So I want to encourage everybody that's here and that's seeing this on the live side. I want to encourage everybody to share this out as much as possible. Try and encourage people to watch it and pay attention and try to learn more, and you know, just try to do what you can do to help your fellow man, and try not to let the hysteria get away from you. And you know, go with Sam Tran's method of logic, and you know, thinking about things before you just react. And I think if we can all start doing that. And another thing I wanted to mention to everybody is that Sam Tran is doing he's going to be doing another live Zoom call today at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. And he's going to be talking about the specifics of the 2.5 water. because Michelle Rayleigh reached out and asked in her group if anybody could, you know, shed some real light on this. And Sam said that he was planning on doing a Zoom today at 4 o'clock. I know that I'm planning on taking the time to be on that today. I'm going to be sharing that link out so that, and I encourage everybody to share that far and wide. And, you know, that's the big thing about
Is
this.
that gonna,
All these episodes, all this good information, it's not going to do any good if it doesn't get shared. If it doesn't get sent out far and wide to the hither and yon and to the far reaches of the planet, wherever it can go. So whatever you're doing to share this stuff, please try to encourage people to watch, listen, share, learn, and stay positive and stick with love, because we are the Kong family, kids, and we're here to change the world. How the heck are we doing that, Sean?
1 glass of hydrogen-rich, oxygen-saturated, 1 spray bottle of 2.5 virus bacteria killer at a time. Thank you very kindly.
yeah, I love it.
Brother.
I love it. I love it.
1 lightning bolt in a box, 1 incredible family member, 1 informative show, 1 incredible group of guests at a time, 1 amazing family at a time, kids. So get out there, change the world, starting with your own right here. That person you see it in the mirror, start right there. And of course, as usual, do not forget your hugs, kids. These are important. You gotta have your hugs.
Yes, and let's put our energy into that. Keep our energy positive, you know. Love it. Thank you.
I love you guys. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. And let's get out there. Let's change the world. We'll see you guys a little bit later.
All right, love you guys. Have a good day.
Love you guys too. Have a blessed day.
Have
Sing
good-
happy birthday to my hubby.
God bless everyone.
Birthday to you.
Hooty-hoo!
Hooty-hoo! Oh, hi, you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Make it a great one.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so we're done on the live side. How is I gotta stop the recording here. Stop recording.